Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I'm back again. I'm chatting for a second time today to another dashing, handsome gentleman, and I couldn't be more happy. My name is Tim. I am the owner of The Brand Weaver, a creative consultancy and brand strategy agency helping breweries stand out, own their market, and drive more sales. And I am mega excited to be joined by Evan from Brewdat today. Good morning, afternoon-ish, sir. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Tim. Thanks so much for having and inviting me on.
Mate, I'm very excited. To clarify, what time is it and where are you calling in from today? Because I've been all over the world today.
It is 11 a.m. At Philadelphia currently.
That is perfectly acceptable times to talk. Like, I just said good morning to my guy in Australia when we were speaking this morning. He's like, no, mate, it's 8 o'clock in the evening. I'm like, I am so sorry. I need more coffee. But yes, 11 a.m. Philadelphia, amazing. This is great. So, Evan, you and I are going to be talking about something which is really interesting to me. And I wish it were closer to my heart to say that I were part of this generation, but alas, I cannot. We're going to be talking about Gen Z and what breweries can do to win over that generation, because they're a different kettle of fish, right? They're a different bunch of people.
Yeah, I mean it's a whole different strategy. It's a whole different marketplace, and you really need to get creative. And I think like on social media to begin to talk to them, and that's so yeah. There's a lot to come.
Dude, very cool. Well, I suppose like not everyone may be as familiar with your beautiful face as I am now. I've had the opportunity to talk to you a few times, which has been great. But let's get started. Could you introduce yourself? Give us a little bit of, background about Brewdat and, how it all came to be, please.
Yeah, so Evan, the owner of Brewdat, and essentially something I saw in the marketplace in craft beer was just a missing of the approach to Gen Z. And me and my friends really just enjoyed going to breweries from brewery to brewery. And we loved checking out all the different locations, all the spots. And I thought each brewery had something extremely unique to offer that wasn't essentially just the beer, like glassware, atmosphere. Every brand was so like unique and different, and I didn't think that was being shared enough, rather than it was only just the beer that was being shared at each location. But I think there's so much more creativity and like uniqueness that needs to be talked about at each spot. I mean, in the US specifically, there's 10,000 breweries, and everybody has a vision of what a perfect brewery looks like.
Mm.
And that's really and I love telling this story because I think that's what brought me into the beer scene. And somebody from Gen Z, such as myself, I think that's an important message to like put out there is showcasing more than just the beer is a key aspect to what somebody from Gen Z is looking for. So when I was getting involved in this space, I was looking for a resource or something that would like be online on social media that talks about all the cool happenings in beer, but not just the beer, like just like what fun stuff is happening in the beer space. And there's plenty of it, but it wasn't almost centralized to everything going on, like the excitement from different perspectives and really seeing that all through social media, the different accounts. And we wanted to put something together that really bridged that message and showed the visuals, the creativity, all the different like ideas that these breweries had to the younger generation through social media. So what we started as is doing videos at breweries and trying to showcase what they had, eventually now has turned into like a media marketing and events company, which is Brewdat. So we're based in Philly, but we are doing all these sort of creative initiatives that are in Philly, but even outside of Philly at this point, and just continuing to push that.
It's awesome. I love it. You know, clearly I've seen the work that you guys are doing, and there's some incredible events going on. And I think, like, especially a lot of people in the UK, they look to the US as the trendsetters for what's happening, and we try and bring that over now. And to even just get a hint of what you guys are up to, and there's hopefully a couple of people listening, or they'll rewatch this and go, hey, I'm going to give this a go, then I think it's going to be a great chat. So let's kind of make it really easy for our listeners and viewers to understand. What would you say makes Gen Z different from the other generations out there when it comes to how they approach breweries and indeed beer as a drink? Like, what are the big differences?
Yeah, I think there's like 2 to 3. Number one, I would say experience comes first to Gen Z. I think it's crucial to have a place that's open and presentable that somebody from Gen Z can see and envision themselves at. So whether that's like your atmosphere, just having this welcoming environment, and something that's very approachable. I think that's a huge piece of it, where you can have the best beer, but if you're also then just pushing like our beer is the best, it is gonna the barrier to entry for somebody from Gen Z gets a little scary in that sense. But having such an just great environment, welcoming, and a bunch of options. So if somebody is not a beer drinker and they want to come with their friends, that's also now that's just a hangout spot for everybody to kind of congregate to, rather than only serving the beer. But it's more than just the beer to somebody in Gen Z. It's about the atmosphere, the vibes, the experience, which all these breweries do a fantastic job at cultivating. But it's trying to present that a little bit forward and more so than they have been in the past.
So just making people aware of the experiences that are going on. And like, before we get stuck into this too much, anyone who's watching, if you've got any questions for Evan, please do use the comments thread. We'll try and get to them. If not, I'm sure Evan will spend some time responding offline when we get a chance. So, Evan, you're saying about like it's the experiential side of things. It's a place where you want to go, you want to hang out. What happens if a brewery doesn't have like a tap room? Like, if they don't actually have a location, can they still be, you know, appealing to a Gen Z market if they're only shipping out cans and bottles?
I mean, I think absolutely. Like, you just have to be very creative in how you're doing it, and using social media as a tool is that best way to be then talking to Gen Z. You in the brewery sense, everybody's teammates, everybody wants the brewery to succeed, but you also need to stand out a little bit. And to Gen Z, it is crucial to be on social media, and we'll dive plenty into that. But it's something that it's absolutely there. And I will say distribution is tough right now, especially to Gen Z. But as long as you're creative, and I do think there's another key point to it that I don't have a ton of detail on, like data wise, but I just know like low ABV and low carbonation beers have really taken off with the Gen Z audience. And we see right now Guinness is moving like any beer is like really ever moved. And a lot of it is because people just don't feel as bloated. And that's just another like, okay, you have the perfect brand. Now, what's a beer that can also kind of now work with Gen Z? And I think like we've seen just the low ABV, the stouts, the a little lighter but really good pale ales, and I think there's another way to kind of weave that, and even sour beers is another one that have really approached the Gen Z market. But being able to have those selections, now you have everybody in. Now here are the options that they would enjoy. That's not just a bunch of IPAs, at least.
Yeah. And so like that to me is even really interesting, because you think about why do we drink, and it's the traditional response is like to get that buzz on, or it's like it's the social lubricant that encourages the conversation.
Mhm.
But if I'm hearing you correctly, you're thinking about there's more drinking from a well-being kind of side of things, and like physically how you feel. You want to avoid that bloating. You want that variation. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, yeah, I see that trend a lot, really. I mean, just in general, you see the move away from like gluten and a lot of things because people aren't feeling as well. And obviously, that's very tough for beer, as a lot of like most beer is gluten. So there's a piece there too that just prolonged drinking will of beer might get people sick, and they're a little worried about feeling like bad like the next day, the next few days. So that is something where there's certain beers, and definitely like certain styles, I would say specifically, that are definitely more appealing
Mm.
to like a Gen Z audience, at least.
Cool. Well, we're not going to spend time like preaching to brewers saying what they should brew, but I
No,
want to
for
talk
sure.
about that's not my place to do it by any means. So let's jump back into like experiential marketing, experimental marketing as well. So you're saying about creating the experience, getting the word out there, and making people just aware of what's going on in the tap room. Like, how important is that for Gen Z? Like, and what are some great examples that have worked well, and indeed that you've worked on now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is beyond crucial at this point to just be looking at Gen Z and really trying to figure out like what gets them in and moving and wanting to go out to the different locations. And everybody I talk to, all my friends and people younger than me, everybody loves breweries, but they do use that terminology as like we love breweries. They don't specifically say they love the beer, but they love being at the breweries. So,
Mhm.
and beer is just and beer is a part of that brewery, obviously. So how do you work people going to the breweries, because then they're going to be drinking all the beer and they're going to be enjoying that. So we've worked on some different like creative uh, marketing strategies, like a little out there, but really try to utilize everybody together in social media and just getting people in the door. So one of the examples we did over Halloween was this Can Crusher event, and it was basically like a murder mystery where we had 50 breweries involved. Every brewery sent over a photo of one of their employees, and we had somebody on the loose that was can crushing. We didn't know who. So everybody also then posted the same time this crazy like who done it. You could read through everything on the social media platforms, and it hit from a holistic standpoint of all the social media accounts involved, like 900,000 accounts that had the visibility to see this initiative. And that's just from a social media standpoint. Every brewery also had these table tents and posters. So we heard this frequently is people would come into the bar and then look at the bartenders and be like, "Hey, you're the can crusher." So it was so fun, it was involved, and it the breweries really loved it and took on to it, like making it their own, making content for it, just pushing this really just fun, creative type message. And I see this as something where this is an event that can resonate with Gen Z.
Mhm.
It's the idea of what is something that's approachable, that somebody from the generation is like, that's really fun and funny, or that's really just like cool. Now I'm engaged. I'm searching through everybody's social media to find out who this can crusher is, and just getting this exposure to the local breweries and the spots in your neighborhood that you never even knew existed. And it's cool because all the breweries were working together to essentially put on this event and message. Um, and really just get get the excitement out there.
I love that. And I think it's really interesting because, my perspective has always been like, what can the brewery do? But what you're saying there is like, actually, you get a bunch of breweries involved if it's all possible. And I suppose, is there added benefit? The more breweries you get, the more reach you get, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's part of it is it is tough for these small breweries with limited resources. Some might just be themselves, and we're at least in a position to like support them by having them involved in what we're doing to boost up their reach and visibility from a social media standpoint.
Yeah, I think, when I look at some of the bigger cities here in the UK, you can see it working. London's, Liverpool's, Bristol's, things like that, where you've got like a good number of breweries. But what about for the ones who stand alone? Like there's one brewery in a city, there's no others. Like, can a bit of creative, experimental event work still work for them?
Absolutely. And that's the thing is just I think experiential marketing is it is the wave of the future for Gen Z in general. I mean, content is king right now, and I don't see that ever going away. So whether that's social media or like this atmosphere or message you're trying to put on in a location and mixing them both together, I think can go a long way. Like if you're a brewery, you're a larger brewery, there's certainly ways to put on these different sort of creative events and initiatives at all the bars that are serving your beer or at the beer distributors or any of these locations that have your beer that you can reach a new target, incorporating this type of very engaging social media along with potential message at locations, maybe a narrative, something, but it all roots down to this experience in a lot of ways.
And so let's talk about social media a bit here, because like you said, it's a two-pronged thing. You've got the thing that's going on, the tangible, it's happening in a tap room or it's happening with your bottles, cans, clips, but then you've got social. And if I were like the old fuddy-duddy brewers, like Gen Z, they just dance and do trends on TikTok.
Yeah.
What's that? How can I do that to be good with my brewery? Which clearly isn't the case, right? But give me like a dummy's guide to social media use to appeal to Gen Z. Like, what platforms? How do we use it?
Yeah. I mean, TikTok, Instagram, those are the big ones for Gen Z. If you're looking at like a traditional social media, YouTube, very big for Gen Z, but that's more longer form content. Short form, it's going to be TikTok and Instagram Reels, but it is going to be the video style content. That is very crucial. And here's the biggest thing I say is don't try to be something that you're not. You have to be authentic to yourself and your brand. So whether that's then getting somebody younger involved or somebody that really understands social media to help make that message for you is going to be key. And the reason I say this is Gen Z grew up with iPhones in their hands. Like it is second nature. They can read in between the lines so well to understand what you're saying better maybe than you're even saying it. It's a very interesting, but they know so much of what's going on social. They know what's like really being said. They can pick out that message. So if you're saying a message but it doesn't actually feel real, they'll be able to know that. And that's a tough thing when a lot of places haven't grown up with social media. So being able to lean on and have that support from people that really deeply understand it just because they're native to it is a really big thing. But authenticity is huge. Just being able to show yourself and your brand and what you're looking to put out there. They can see that, and that goes a long, long way.
When you say about authenticity and then like leaning on someone who's more native to, like you say, having an iPhone in their hand since birth. I was lucky enough to have the Nokia 3310, which was far from a smartphone, dude, but at least it was a mobile phone. I was still part of that generation. But what would you say to brewers who are like, yeah, I don't get it, but my daughter does. I'm going to ask her to do a bit, but I'm worried. Like, she doesn't understand my brewery. She doesn't quite know what's going on. Like, is there a middle ground in there that it can still work? Or is it awkward?
I think so. I think there's definitely a middle ground. And I mean, all our breweries, we want to use all the resources we have, for sure. I know having somebody manage a social media or hiring somebody just for social media could be very tough on like a bunch of these local places. So if you do have somebody or like a daughter or son or friends or family that are younger, I would certainly really rely on their opinion on certain things. I wouldn't say you have to take it as gospel, but certainly meeting Gen Z halfway in this is going to be very important to getting them just to build a connection with your brand. So I think there's a lot of valuable insight for somebody that is on social media to take away and work with them in a lot of ways.
So it'll be very rare that this happens, but I'm thinking brewery owner, kids grown up, they're not really Gen Z. They don't have someone they can lean on. What are like the safest moves they can make into social media that will start to appeal to a Gen Z market if they're doing it off their own back?
Yeah, so I would say just certainly posting and posting authentically, I guess. I like to put this example, not a brewery owner, but a pretty popular influencer. His name is Beer with Alan. Alan he's about 56 years old, and I think he has 250,000 followers. So of those 250,000 followers, I'm not going to be able to understand which ones are Gen Z, but there's certainly a decent portion because I know friends that follow him. But Alan is as authentic as it comes. We actually just had him on our podcast, and he was telling us all these stories, and he's just him, and it works because he is just being him, and he's not trying to do anything besides just talk about the beer. Not saying that's going to work for everybody because there are brands and differences between every message, but if there are limited resources and you still want to get on Instagram, TikTok, where I think everybody should be at least trying and experimenting at this point, talking about your brand and just really being true would be a good start.
And like if I remember correctly, like Alan's content is very much, it's just him to camera, right? There's no fancy cuts or edits. It's just he's chatting. That's it, right?
That is it. Yeah, 100%. Alan actually just told us he just learned how to flip the camera the other way on the phone to take his videos. So, and he's doing amazing. He started his account last year.
Oh wow. I didn't realize it was such a new account to get that kind of traction. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's truly
So
crazy.
Instagram and TikTok. Now, of course, TikTok had a wobble like just a few days ago where it blipped,
Yeah.
right? So
You
probably got a few brewers going, oh, why am I going to invest my time in TikTok? It might disappear in 75, 80, 90 days, whatever the time period is. Like, are you still going, it's definitely the place? Is it a case of you've just got to get the reps in? It doesn't matter what platform it is. If it's not TikTok, it's something else? Or
yeah, I mean, just from that, if limited resources again, Instagram Reel and TikTok, you could use the same video. Like that's something simple enough. If you have the time, you can cater towards one and the other. But I personally, I don't think it's necessarily worth it from a brewery's time standpoint, depending on the resources, to be catering different videos. But regardless of if TikTok is going to be there or not, like there's going to be something that will be similar to that. And Instagram Reels at this point is not going to go away. So as long as you're creating content for that and you can use that same content on different platforms in a same short form style, that's going to be crucial to getting your feet together, getting everything understood, and really learning on how you want to position yourself in short form to put out there.
And like the real format, like you say, that's the popular format. Is a lot of that to do with the level of authenticity that you get from that versus, you know, a staged image, a bit of text? Like what's behind the reel, which you don't get with a static image?
Yeah, I mean, there's more of a message for sure. There's more direct engagement. You're talking openly to an audience in a lot of ways, maybe not necessarily if certain content, but it's more inviting and really just seeing almost like a TV show is you're getting really familiar with these characters. Like you buy into these characters and you buy into whatever these characters might be doing. So in a lot of ways, having your face or having somebody along in your brewery that over and over can build that like fan base, audience, trust is much more personal and deep than you would see in a static post that says specials or new beer. It's much deeper, and that does get into the authentic, who is this brand, why I'm supporting this brand. I like what they're doing, and I think that's a big piece of it. And there are places that are really starting to do it right too, and I love seeing the different creative like brewery content come out that's just perfectly putting together that message while not being like overly sales and like you have to like and buy our beer, but like talking about and having fun, which ultimately is building that brand together.
Dude, drop the names. Like if people want to go and see
who
you think are doing well, like who should they go and check out?
I think so in our area, Love City Brewing does a really good job on social. I think they're called Black Plague Brewing as well. They're not our area, but they're in the US. I realize this is a little national, international.
Okay, we get it. It's fine.
But fantastic job. Yeah, they just do a really good job at putting unique, fun content out there. Also, Tripping Animals does a really good job out in Miami, Florida. So a lot of them are just putting unique, creative content ideas together. And you'll see it's not necessarily like promoting this specific thing in the moment, but it's promoting them as a whole, which ultimately then promotes whatever they're doing.
So when I talk to breweries, because I get fed up with the idea of like, this is our next beer, this is our next event, you know, this is when the food truck pops up and here comes a new stout. Like there's got to be more. And like I personally talk about 5 Ps, which is like the product, which is the beer, the place, but beyond just the events, like the location, what's going on around, what's it all about. People, like let's actually meet the people at the brewery, get their story, purpose. And because we're talking live, I completely blanked on the last P, but that whole idea, that proves it's live. I can't fake it. That's authentic. But do you know what I mean? Just trying to, I think I completely agree that it needs to be a broader spectrum of information and storytelling than just, like you say, next beer, next food truck, 100%. Okay, so I also worry, well, no, from a brewer's perspective, right? So if you're going, it's about the reels, it's about authenticity, there's almost the element of like, that can't be palmed off to an agency who might be able to help out with it, because they can do the lovely statics, they can write the text. But if you're looking for authenticity and from the heart of the brewery, like not many people can do that apart from you, like brewery owner or brewery staff, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is certainly, yeah, it's certainly a fine line at least. Because yet again, you will be able to see the differences. People can tell. People can tell. So I do think there are ways, but it would have to be brands and agencies that are deeply understanding as well of like what you're going for, your message, and have like and buy into your brewery, your message. And I think that's you see very like you can see very good partnerships in that.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a very mutual trust and understanding between the brewery owner and having somebody, if not themselves, being able to work their social media and put out their message.
Okay, so we've got brewery owners that've gone, right, I've listened to Evan. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna dive in. I'm gonna start posting some authentic content on Instagram and TikTok. But that's just my social thing, right? When it comes to the tap room, when it comes to the physical environment and what they're putting out there, like what else do breweries need to be thinking about to make their brand more Gen Z friendly?
Yeah, I would say options. Options are always a big thing. I mean, and specifically, yet again, talking about like how I got into beer. I went to a bunch of different breweries because I loved flights. I think flights is a huge thing for Gen Z. I know
Mhm.
from a beer purist standpoint, depending, it could be quite bothersome, but from a taproom revenue standpoint, it's also pretty good. A lot of glassware, can be a lot of confusion if it's not necessarily you have the resources, but the idea of being able to go to a brewery and try all these different creative, unique styles, options that you, as somebody from Gen Z, has never heard of, is super fun and super appealing. And I mean, myself, just seeing the different glassware and flight paddles or approaches you have in that is engaging. So being able to then have this, let's call unique appeal to your place once somebody gets in there is very crucial. And even having like your brand kind of work with something that very close to you. And I guess it really does get down to the authenticity again. I mean, there's so many different breweries and everybody has their own unique view on what a brewery is. So what is your unique view of your brewery? And
Mhm.
being able to show that like wholeheartedly almost is a really good way to present your location and invite into the tap room. I think it's about that, and I think it's about the approachability to locations and some of the beers, just having this variety, this option, something that, okay, we got a Gen Z person to come into our tap room. Now they see a bunch of different options. They see a fun atmosphere. That's something that's going to keep them there and bring their friends there.
So, like, if we talk about that the flight and trying different options and stuff, where's the idea of almost like an education aspect come into appealing to Gen Z? So, like, you get a flight, you get 4 different beers to try, and it's like, actually, this one works best with this glass, and here's the story behind this, and then this one's made with X, Y, and Z. Like, I can imagine a lot of brewers just going like, they're going to get bored with this stuff. They just want to drink it, right? Or are we completely wrong?
I do think that's definitely a part of it. They're going to get bored with that. And that is one of the hardest things because brewers are artists and beer is beautiful, right? And nobody should take that away ever. And not even, I wouldn't say it's taking it away when somebody from Gen Z doesn't want to necessarily learn about all the beer, but it's it's almost like a slow burn.
Mm.
Like, let's get everybody into the tap room. Let's get people comfortable and approached to the beer, like a reset point, and then cool. Now we have everybody kind of involved, interested. Now we can kind of turn the dial and get
Mhm.
back and start to educate. But that is one of the things. It's the view of like approachability and barrier to entry for somebody in Gen Z is a little scary for the traditional type of craft beer. So if we're able to get people in and then let them kind of evolve with the space at almost their own pace in a way,
Mm.
I think that's really where you're going to see the growth into the education piece of the beer side specifically.
Okay, so you're not going to get Gen Z through the door with education or the brewery tours, but like earlier on, you talked about the Can Crusher Halloween kind of fall thing. That was awesome. What other like more creative events and ideas can you like throw out to the digital sphere that would be appealing to the likes of Gen Z? And what's the thought process behind it as well?
Yeah, like from our standpoint, or just from a general like brewery standpoint.
So, like ones that you've done in the past, but then also like
Mhm,
if a brewery is kind of looking to put something on and they want the best
mhm,
chance of appealing to Gen Z, like what do they need to be thinking about?
for sure. Starting with like, I think the breweries for what breweries would want to appeal to a Gen Z in the tap rooms, like I keep going back to the concept of video games. I think you see people really growing towards this video game sphere, and yet again that kind of goes through with Gen Z grew up on their phones, they grew up with technology, they want to they enjoy video games, even like professional gaming is huge, streaming, like it's huge for somebody in that generation. So being able to cultivate like even types of video game tournaments, like I said, we're starting to run video game tournaments because we know that gets in the younger audience to these places. So like being able to start with some video games, or even house music is a really big one right now, and trying to approach to this younger audience. But yet again, it does have to be done in like a very brand specific. You don't want some of these types of like house music or video game events when your audience is 40s, 50s, 60s. They're going to be like, what is going on here? I'm tired. No, it doesn't work.
You've
So
changed. I don't love you anymore. Stop it.
exactly. So it's a fine line, but it's a line you have to be paying attention to, because the Gen Z drinker in like 2 to 3 years is going to be majority over 21,
Mm.
and the brands are going to have to be appealing more and more to just continue to the next generation cycle. So it is going to be a fine line to like kind of weave, but I do think creative ways to involve video games and just like music, like culture
Mm.
stuff will really bring people in from that generation. And just from our standpoint, we put together this what I'm calling like this digital new age beer fest. We have a bunch of different breweries involved, and this is right now in Philly specific, but we are looking to really grow this. Um, every brewery that participates over the course of 3 months, somebody that purchases a ticket to this will get a free standard pour at each of these locations. So aside from a traditional beer fest where you're all waiting in lines and you are not really building a connection with any of the brands, you're really just there to drink the beer. And at a certain point, you're not going to know the difference between one beer and the other beer.
Mhm.
With what we're looking to do in this event is it gives consumers the time to really create a connection and go to these tap rooms and build this connection with the tap rooms, stay at these tap rooms. It's spaced out as long as the 3 months for that reason, so people aren't just going for a full week to drink as much as they can, but rather we're now in this tap room, we're spending an hour of our time in these locations, and we're just enjoying everything it has to offer. And that's one of the ways, and through our event we saw 30% of our ticket sales was Gen Z. And I love that fact so much, because I know in the space that is not a great, that's a very hard to obtain sort of number. And I'm like really looking forward to seeing, as the progression of this goes, like how much of Gen Z can we filter into different tap rooms. And something very interesting also is it wasn't the first, but it was the second most tried beer at these locations once we got them in, was a sour beer.
Interesting.
Very, very interesting. And I was quite surprised myself. But you look at it as categories of generation. Millennials was 50% of our ticket purchasers. Gen Z was 30%. Number one was IPA, and the number two was sour. So very interesting.
Yeah. That it says a lot, doesn't it, actually? And it speaks to, like you say, the diversity and trying variety, but also more experiential, and just having that length of time where you can really enjoy all these breweries over 3 months for a really small cost. Like you see a huge amount of value in that as a consumer, don't you? And
100%.
From a brewery side of things, they're going, yeah, we're going to give a free pour, but you're going to get that person there for much longer than a free pour, you'd assume. So you're going to be making bank on, whatever they've committed to. Okay. So those are like great ideas. We think about like the video game side of things, the music piece, or like kind of almost the collaborative approach where you can try and experience. I know I've seen on your socials recently, and we talked about this before we came online, but this all like kind of treasure hunt-esque key finding vibe. Can you share that? Because I think that's really fascinating as well. And again, it's another different experience that breweries might be interested to hear about.
Yeah, so this one is, and I think this will get into another good collaboration topic for breweries too. We worked with, his name is Eric the Puzzler. He does puzzle installations all over the city of Philadelphia and outside of Philadelphia to activate like public spaces. So he's got stuff in the Philly airport, like throughout the streets, utilizing the different arts that are in the streets and pretty much building this like puzzle hunt to it. So Eric and I were working on this project together on how do we activate these different spaces at these breweries. And I found Eric through social media. He's a content creator, but also an artist. And we saw this, and we're like, there's certainly a really cool avenue to drive people to these breweries. So we came up with this concept together of, there is this national treasure that was left here from years ago. Philly has a very rich history in beer, and these treasure maps have been just popping up at these random places. We don't know why. No one knows. I mean, we do know why, but
it's all
the consumer. Yeah, that'd be great if it wasn't. But it's the intrigue, the idea of, here's this puzzle piece. Oh, now we just found another one. Here's another one. And we're able to cultivate this event that now every location you go to will give you a separate puzzle piece that you need to solve in order to figure out the treasure, which is a collaborative type prize that will be divvied amongst everybody that solves it. Which is a lot. It's just a lot of brewery gift cards, which is awesome too.
Dude, everyone will take free beer. It's all good.
But you have to go to all 8 spaces to do that. And yet again, that builds another like element of deepened engagement with these locations. That's going to stand out a lot more and really just build this experience with this new audience too.
And I can see how it works on so many levels. Of course, you've got to try and get to all 8, but there's the puzzle aspect. So you're joining together as a team to try and solve that. You've got something to do in the brewery beyond just sampling the beer. And then, of course, it's like you're working for the greater good that you get something at the end. Like it's tick, tick, tick. For a brewery who doesn't have like a whole host of other breweries in the area, I suppose it's still possible on a smaller scale. Like they could do a different kind of challenge every other week or something over a period of months, right? And you just invite people back. It's like an evolved pub quiz in many ways.
Yeah, like it absolutely can be. And that's the cool thing. It's these, like any experiential marketing or creative events can be so catered to whatever you're really looking to do. But like if you're looking to drive customers back once a month or something, there's a narrative or a type of event that you can create yourself. It definitely takes some unique perspective or just some different thinking or just experiments again, but to drive, okay, January this, February this, March this, but it's all the same narrative, which will then build the intrigue and bring people back. So if that's a mystery beer release, or this has happened in the tap room, or collect all these, or etc. For a brewery that doesn't have anybody else around, I think that's a big that could be a big interest for like local like patrons for sure.
Okay, so we talked about like all the great things and exciting things that breweries could do. Let's look at the other side of the coin. Like what are the no-nos, or what is like some of the common mistakes that breweries might make when they're trying to appeal to Gen Z, like trying to be cool and hip and down with the kids, as they say, but they really fail? Like what are the things to avoid, man?
Okay, like the first thing I would say is I would say it's the mindset of posting on social media, and just posting on social media is that. There, and as we talked about with like the static post or the your specials, or just like we have beer, or like even some of the memes, or that's a very personal one. I do not like AI generated content for your brand. I think that's very you're taking away you're taking away the creativity that you could be showing, and it lacks authenticity. But like just posting the post isn't the answer, and I think that's one that is there's much more to it that you have to understand when posting. But yeah, and don't also thinking the social media is like just the TikTok dances, or the like, oh, we have to do this. We have to do this. It's changing that mindset of we have to do this versus, oh, I think this would be a really fun idea. So I guess it's cliche, but it does come back to just trying to be more authentic, be open to accepting social media as part of the new age, and putting yourself out there a little bit more so than just the static posts. But I think overall, the biggest no-no is almost like not trying, really. Yeah.
The head in the sand, like it's cool, we'll just carry on doing what we've always done, we'll get through that anyway, right? Yeah, I get that. And I like, as a brewery owner, if you're thinking about like different events or exciting events, if you come up with an idea which isn't your traditional brewery tour or pub quiz or raffle or local acoustic singer, and you kind of go, hey, that could be fun, like I could enjoy it, I suppose, like even if it doesn't resonate with the Gen Z market, you might get a different demographic who do enjoy it because you're trying something different. So you're not going to fail that far away from the goal. You're still going to try something new. You're still going to get a result, whatever way that might be. So I think people should be confident in giving it a go, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's trying new things is certainly scary, but there's really no loss in bringing in a new audience or new potential consumer to your brewery and location, as long as you stay truthful to who you are and your message along the way.
Stay true and give it a go. Okay, so we've got just under 10 minutes before we wrap this up, Evan, and it's been phenomenal, mate. I have genuinely loved this. My brain has been ticking with ideas of the clients I work with going, oh, they should really try this and that, but I'll write them all down after this. But so I can imagine there's going to be brewers sat there going, oh, yeah, it's all well and good for the big boys of the industry. They've got budget. They've got young people on their team. You know, they've got all the time in the world. But what advice, you know, can you give to those small breweries who are trying to compete potentially with the larger breweries who have the time and the money and the staff to, you know, experiment with this?
Yeah, and this is something that is a difficult sort of thing for a lot of breweries, just from a pure resource standpoint. You have all the money as these larger scale places to put on this message to appeal to this generation or just all these different people, but you have to utilize the strengths that the breweries, like that you're yourself as a brewery has, and that's like the maneuverability, the creativity, and the ability to change and to weave and adapt so quickly, where someone as a large company cannot do so. They're very stuck in, this is how they operate, and there's going to take a lot of steps to change that. But with a small location, you can and should have the try within that, because it's just so much easier to maneuver and experiment. And I think that's something that everybody can use to their advantage as you're trying to like stand out and build and show who you guys are on a local level.
Yeah, when I think about it more, you're completely right. Like those smaller breweries are the ones who can go, yeah, we're going to try this, and they don't have to get it signed off by like the person above them and then the person above that and the person above that, and by the time they've known it, 2 months have gone past and the momentum's gone. Like they're the perfect position to go, yeah, we'll do a Mario Kart tournament. Yeah, we'll stick it on in a month. Stick a couple of social posts up about that. Let's start getting some interest and go from it. So yeah, those are the guys who can really capitalize on this and really benefit from it in many ways, can't they?
100%. And that is a ability that only small business, I would say, but like even like the breweries can really utilize, that it's hard for other players to do so. So it's a uniqueness that breweries need to just congregate around more and like just go for it. Like it's a beautiful thing to have those options in a lot of ways.
For sure. Okay, so Evan, we got to wrap this up. Like I said, I've got to get my son to swimming. I've got to do my dad thing. But as we wrap this up, like if you could leave this chat parting one final gem of wisdom to everyone listening, like if they can take away one thing from this conversation because they're going, yep, we know Gen Z is important, we want to appeal to them. What is that final nugget of wisdom you can drop for them? No pressure.
Yeah, right. I guess here's one that I think is a very easy way to start appealing to Gen Z. And every local city, probably at this point, every local area has different unique content creators. I wouldn't say just the food influencers, that's a whole different game, but people that are making content for the areas. Almost like yet again into the area culture, just the culture. Utilizing them and even potentially partnership and collaboration. I think collaboration is key by positioning yourself with these local content creators. Got to look at who's following these content creators.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly Gen Z. So if you're able to put out different beers with them, and I see a lot of breweries starting to do that in this area, but if you're putting out beers with them, they're able to build content for you. It's a really good, beautiful collaboration that can help brand weave into
like they said the name of the film in the film.
into these like new audiences. Yeah,
dude, a very valid point, and gold star for dropping my brand weaving name in there as well, dude. I like that. Evan, man, I cannot thank you enough. I think this has been so very valuable. I'm hoping the people who've watched it have got some value, and equally those people are going to rewatch it in the future. I know I'm going to rewatch this because there is so much that I can take away from this and bear in mind to help my clients out. So as we wrap this up, Evan, let us know, where can people get in touch with you? Where can people follow along, and where can people contact you if they're kind of like, yeah, we need to pick Evan's brains on this a bit more?
For sure. I mean, I love talking about this subject and topic all the time. So I'm always just open for conversation. You can find us at Brewdat, BREWEDAT. So it's Brewed at, so Brewdat X. It's a play.
We get it.
So follow us. Yeah, follow us there on all social medias, and then just our website is also brewdat.com, and there's an information page, and email will go straight to me, so I'll be responding, and I also check all our social media DMs as well, so always open to talk from there.
Fantastic, my man. Well, again, a huge thank you for your time this morning for you. Time zone's weird. Have an amazing rest of the day. Everyone who tuned in to watch this live, thank you so much. Everyone who's watching this in the future, equally, thank you so much. You'll rock. Have a great day. Rock on.
Thank you.